You son of a bitch! You!
3 gunshots crack through the afternoon air of a Dallas shopping center. A mother collapses onto the hot pavement while her daughter screams for help. An ER nurse sprints across the parking lot, dropping to her knees to perform CPR, her hands already shaking because she just knows, this woman might not make it. Blood pools beneath Cecilia Simpson's body as shoppers freeze in horror. Some pulling out their phones, others running for cover, and all of them asking the same question. What could possibly make someone pull a gun and shoot a complete stranger in broad daylight over something so insignificant that when I tell you what started this, you'll question everything you think you know about human nature? If cases like this one keep you up at night, if you want to understand the psychology behind senseless violence, hit that like button right now, subscribe to One Crime at a Time, and smash that bell icon, because we dive deep into the cases that make you think. Trust me, you're going to need to stick around for this entire story. October 8th, 2025. It's a Tuesday afternoon in Dallas, Texas, and the weather is typical for early fall in North Texas. Warm, slightly humid, the kind of day where families are out shopping, grabbing dinner, living their normal lives. The Wheatland Town Crossing Shopping Center on West Wheatland Road is buzzing with activity. Cars pulling in and out of parking spaces. People walking with shopping bags. Kids running ahead of their parents. Everything about this day is ordinary. Painfully, beautifully ordinary. And for 41-year-old Cecilia Simpson, this was supposed to be just another errand run with her daughter. Just another Tuesday. She had no idea that in less than an hour, she'd be fighting for her life in a parking lot. She had no idea that a simple act of kindness was about to set off a chain of events that would end in tragedy. Let me tell you about Cecilia. She wasn't just a victim in a news headline. She was a real person with a real life. A mother of 2. A daughter. A sister. The kind of woman her family describes as having a huge heart. You know the type. The person who remembers your birthday. The one who shows up when you need help moving. The one who does small things that make you feel seen and loved. That was Cecilia. And on this particular Tuesday, she was out with her daughter, probably talking about life, maybe laughing about something silly, just enjoying each other's company. They decided to stop at Five Below, that discount store where you can grab random things you didn't know you needed for $5 or less. A totally normal stop. And as they approached the entrance, there was another woman walking in behind them. Cecilia did what she'd probably done 1,000 times in her life. She held the door open. It's one of those automatic gestures, right? Someone's behind you, you hold the door. It takes half a second. It's polite. It's what we do. But the woman behind her, 22-year-old Kiona Zakua Hampton, didn't say thank you. She didn't smile. She didn't acknowledge Cecilia at all. She just walked right through that door like Cecilia was invisible. Now, I want you to really think about this moment, because this is where everything starts. Have you ever held a door for someone and they didn't say thank you? Of course you have. We all have. And yeah, it's annoying. It's rude. You might mumble something under your breath or give them a look. But for Cecilia, on this day, she said something. Maybe it was a sarcastic, "You're welcome." Maybe it was more direct. We don't know the exact words, but whatever came out of Cecilia's mouth, it struck a nerve with Kiona Hampton. And instead of just rolling her eyes and walking away, Kiona turned around and fired back. An argument erupted right there in the entrance of Five Below. Voices raised. Tension building. Other shoppers probably stopped and stared. And Cecilia's daughter is standing there watching this unfold over something so trivial, so meaningless, that it feels almost absurd. But here's where things take a turn that separates this from just another parking lot argument that you see on social media. The argument at Five Below eventually ended. Cecilia and her daughter left the store. They walked to their car, got in, and drove across the shopping center to PetSmart because they needed to pick up some things for their pet. As far as Cecilia knew, that uncomfortable moment with the rude stranger was over. She probably vented to her daughter about it. Probably said something like, "Can you believe that girl? So disrespectful." And then they moved on because that's what normal people do. They went into PetSmart, probably looking at dog food or cat toys, trying to get back to their day. But then Cecilia noticed something that made her blood run cold. Kiona Hampton was there. Inside PetSmart. The same woman from Five Below had followed them. Think about how that must have felt. You have a random argument with a stranger, you leave, you go to a completely different store, and that person shows up. That's not a coincidence. That's deliberate. That's someone who made a choice to follow you. Cecilia immediately knew something was wrong. She walked up to the PetSmart employees and told them, "That woman is following us." She was scared. She was uncomfortable. She wanted help. And before the employees could even fully process what Cecilia was telling them, Kiona walked right up to them and started arguing again. But this time, she directed her anger at Cecilia's daughter. Can you imagine being that daughter? You're just trying to run errands with your mom, and now this stranger is in your face, yelling at you, all because your mother held a door open and expected a thank you. The employees tried to intervene, tried to calm things down. And eventually, Kiona left the store. Walked right out. And for the second time that day, Cecilia probably thought it was over. She probably felt relief. She probably told her daughter, "Okay, let's just finish up and get out of here." But then, just a few minutes later, Kiona walked back into PetSmart. She came back. She found them again. And she started arguing with Cecilia all over again. At this point, the PetSmart employees had had enough. This was disrupting their store. Customers were uncomfortable. So they made the decision to ask both women to leave. Both of them. Out. Now. So Cecilia and her daughter headed for the exit, walking quickly to their car, just wanting to leave, wanting to go home, wanting this nightmare to end. But as they got to their vehicle and were about to drive away, Kiona did something that escalated everything to a new level. She threw a drink bottle at Cecilia's car. Not just tossed it, threw it hard. Hard enough that it hit the vehicle with a loud thud. Hard enough that it couldn't be ignored. And this is the moment. This is the split second where everything could have gone differently. Cecilia was in her car. She had the keys. She could have driven away. She could have called 911 and reported that a woman was harassing her and following her. She could have gone to the police station. She had options. But instead, she made a choice that would cost her everything. She got out of the car. She walked toward Kiona. And the argument continued, now in the parking lot, in full view of other shoppers, including that ER nurse I mentioned at the beginning who happened to be there and saw everything. The ER nurse later told police that Kiona was taunting Cecilia. She was saying things like, "Come outside. Let's handle this outside. Let's fight outside." She wanted a physical confrontation. She was egging Cecilia on, trying to provoke her. And Cecilia and her daughter were yelling back, telling her to leave, telling her to go away, to just stop. But Kiona wouldn't stop. She kept pushing, kept taunting. And then it happened. The two women started physically fighting. Fists flying. Cecilia was hitting Kiona, yelling at her to leave them alone. It was a full brawl in broad daylight in a shopping center parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon. People were watching. People were probably filming. And Cecilia's daughter was right there, watching her mother fight this woman who had been harassing them for the past hour. Then Cecilia's daughter stepped back. Maybe she was going to call the police. Maybe she thought the fight was winding down. Maybe she just needed a second to process the chaos. But the moment she stepped away, Kiona reached into her clothing and pulled out a black and silver handgun. In one smooth motion, she raised it and fired. Once. Twice. 3 times. The sound of gunshots echoed across the parking lot. People screamed. People ran. And Cecilia Simpson collapsed onto the pavement. Her daughter's screams pierced the air. That ER nurse who had been watching, who had been hoping this would just end with someone walking away, she sprinted over to Cecilia and immediately started performing CPR. She pressed down on Cecilia's chest, counting compressions, trying desperately to keep her alive until paramedics could arrive. Blood was everywhere. Cecilia wasn't responding. And in the background, Kiona Hampton was running. She bolted to her car, a black 2005 Ford 500 with visible damage on it, and she sped out of that parking lot like her life depended on it. Dallas Fire Rescue arrived within minutes. They took over from the ER nurse, loaded Cecilia onto a stretcher, and rushed her to Methodist Central Hospital. But despite their best efforts, despite the ER nurse's quick thinking, despite the paramedics doing everything they could, Cecilia Simpson was pronounced dead. A mother of 2. A woman with a big heart. Gone. Over a door. Over a thank you that never came. Her daughter had to watch her mother die. She had to stand in that parking lot covered in her mother's blood and tell police officers what happened. She had to call her grandmother and tell her that her mom had been shot. Can you even imagine that phone call? Can you imagine being on either end of it? Cecilia's mother, Leslie Wickware, later told reporters that she would never forget the screams.
My granddaughter calling me telling me that her mother had got, I would never forget those screams. I would never. The screams when she was calling me, telling me her mother got shot, the screams in the emergency room when the doctor told us she didn't make it.
Those screams will haunt her for the rest of her life. Cecilia's son, Deron Williams, spoke publicly about the loss of his mother. He called the shooting senseless. He asked the questions that everyone was asking.
What was she thinking? What was going through her mind? Why did she have to follow my mom? What provoked her to continue to engage with my mom? What drove her to do that?
His mother is never coming back. He'll never hear her voice again. Never get another hug. Never introduce her to his future kids if he has them. All of that is gone because of a confrontation that started over holding a door. Meanwhile, Kiona Hampton didn't get far. In 2025, running from a crime scene is nearly impossible. There are surveillance cameras everywhere. License plate readers. Witnesses with cell phones. The police had her car description, they had her license plate, and they had a very clear motive and timeline of events thanks to all the witnesses. By 7:45 that same evening, just hours after she pulled the trigger, police tracked Kiona's vehicle to an apartment complex on John West Road in Dallas. They set up surveillance and waited. When she got into her car and started driving, they pulled her over on Trail Glen Drive and arrested her without incident. She was taken to Dallas Police Headquarters for questioning. And here's where things get really interesting from a psychological standpoint. Kiona waived her Miranda rights. She didn't ask for a lawyer. She sat down with detectives and she talked. She admitted everything. She admitted to the argument at Five Below. She admitted to following Cecilia and her daughter to PetSmart. She admitted to entering the store twice. She admitted to throwing the drink bottle at Cecilia's car. She admitted to fighting with Cecilia in the parking lot. And she admitted to pulling out her gun and shooting Cecilia 3 times. But here's what she said to justify it. She told detectives that she shot Cecilia because she was just trying to get her away from her. She claimed she felt threatened. She claimed it was self-defense. Let that sink in for a minute. Kiona followed Cecilia. Kiona entered PetSmart twice to confront her. Kiona threw something at her car. Kiona was the one saying, "Let's fight outside." Kiona was the aggressor at every single turn. And yet, when the fight that she provoked turned physical, she pulled out a gun and shot Cecilia, claiming she needed to defend herself. Does that make any sense to you? Because it doesn't make sense to Cecilia's family. It doesn't make sense to the witnesses who saw Kiona taunting and provoking Cecilia.
The shooter was still instigating, I guess, an argument or a fight or something. But the mom and daughter tried to get in their car and de-escalate the situation, but the lady wasn't having it.
And it's not going to make sense to a jury if this case goes to trial. Kiona Hampton is currently sitting in the Dallas County Jail, charged with murder. As of the last reports, her bond hasn't been set, which usually indicates the severity of the charge and the flight risk she might pose. The legal process will now unfold. There will be hearings, maybe a trial, and eventually a verdict. But no matter what happens in that courtroom, it won't bring Cecilia back. Her family has to live with this forever. Her children have to grow up without their mother. Her mother has to bury her daughter. And for what? For a door. For a thank you. For ego and pride, and whatever was going on in Kiona Hampton's head that made her think following someone across a shopping center and ultimately shooting them was a reasonable response to a minor social slight. So let me ask you something. What do you think was really going on here? Because on the surface, this looks like a dispute over basic manners. But was it really just about the door? Or was there something deeper happening inside Kiona Hampton's mind that day? Was she having a bad day? Was she dealing with something in her personal life that made her snap? Does any of that even matter when she made the conscious decision to follow Cecilia, to keep engaging, and to bring a gun into a fistfight? And here's another question that's harder to answer. Could Cecilia have walked away? Should she have? When someone is harassing you, following you, taunting you, do you have an obligation to be the bigger person and just leave? Or do you have a right to stand your ground and tell someone to stop? And if you do stand your ground, does that mean you're somehow responsible for what happens next? These are uncomfortable questions because there's no easy answer. Cecilia didn't deserve to die. Nobody deserves to die over something like this. But this case forces us to think about how quickly things can escalate. How pride and ego can turn a minor annoyance into a tragedy. How bringing a weapon into any situation changes everything. Think about Kiona for a second. She's 22 years old. Her entire life is ahead of her. And now she's facing a murder charge. Even if she somehow gets a reduced sentence, even if she claims self-defense and a jury buys it, her life will never be the same. She'll always be the woman who shot someone in a parking lot. She'll always have to live with the fact that she took a mother away from her children. Was it worth it? Was proving a point? Was defending her pride? Was whatever she thought she was doing, was any of it worth this outcome? And here's the thing that really gets me. Both of these women had so many chances to walk away. After Five Below, they could have never seen each other again. After the first confrontation at PetSmart, Kiona could have left and never come back. After the second confrontation, they both could have just gone to their cars and driven in opposite directions. After Kiona threw the bottle, Cecilia could have driven away and called the police. At every single point in this timeline, someone could have made a different choice. But they didn't. And now one woman is dead, and the other is facing the rest of her life in prison. What does this say about us as a society? What does it say about how we handle conflict? About how we react when we feel disrespected? About the choices we make when our emotions are running high? And maybe most importantly, what does it say about the normalization of carrying weapons and being willing to use them? Kiona had a gun on her that day. She brought it to a shopping center. She had it with her when she followed Cecilia. And when things got physical, she didn't hesitate to use it. What made her think that was the right move? What made her think that shooting someone was an appropriate response to a fistfight? These are the questions that keep me up at night because cases like this aren't rare. They're happening more and more. People are killing each other over parking spots, over fast food orders, over perceived disrespect. And we have to ask ourselves why. What is happening in our culture that makes this kind of violence feel like an option? If this case made you think, if it made you uncomfortable, if it made you question things, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you think Kiona's self-defense claim holds any weight? Do you think Cecilia should have just driven away? Where do you draw the line between standing up for yourself and knowing when to let something go? Let's have a real conversation about this because these are hard questions and there are no easy answers. And if you want to keep diving into cases that make you think, that challenge you to understand human behavior, make sure you're subscribed to One Crime at a Time. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves true crime, and let's keep this conversation going. If you found this case interesting, watch this next. Chicago True Crime. Romika Meeks killed after son's school drop-off, no charges filed. Another mother, another senseless tragedy, and a justice system that failed. I'll see you there.